Now, email marketing is one of the platforms that you can use to make more sales, and I love it for multiple reasons. But all overworked and overwhelmed retailers seem to struggle with the exact same thing when it comes to email marketing. What the heck do I put in my emails? Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. If you're stuck in a rut, feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've achieved all of the things that you set out to and are wondering what next, or how do I even make this better, then I know that you're going to love today's episode. I can tell you now, if you're an overworked and overwhelmed retailer, you're probably struggling with one of these things when it comes to email marketing. You know that you should be sending out emails, but you just never have enough time. Or you're never quite sure what you should put in those emails. So when you finally get around to putting one together, they're always cobbled together and you're never quite sure if you've done the right thing or if you put the right offer in. Or when you finally get around to sending an email blast, your open rate is in the single digits. And if you're lucky, you might make a handful of sales. And when you sit down and wonder why the heck you even bothered putting that time and energy in. It feels like a lot of energy for minimal return. Between what to post on social or uploading stock to your website and processing orders, what to write in today's email can feel like yet another thing on your to-do list. Now, that list can go on and on and on. So what I want to do is break down this simple formula that I use to make email work for any retail or e-commerce business. It doesn't matter what you sell. And it is the same process that we use inside of our business when we create the email marketing campaigns and automated flows for our retail and e-commerce clients. And it's streamlined, it's effective, and I know that it gets results. So if you want to fix email marketing in your business, let's jump in and I'll break it down. If you're new to the podcast, I'm Selena Knight, the retail strategist, and I am passionate about giving independent retailers the strategies that they need to scale their stores. And if you're feeling stuck about how to make email marketing work for you, then you are going to love today's episode. Now, the great thing about email is that it is ridiculously cheap, and a lot of it can be put on autopilot. It makes you a lot of money, and it also builds your customer loyalty and what we call customer buy-in. So that customer, brand awareness is probably the word that a lot of people use, but we call it customer buy-in. And as I said, a lot of it can be done on autopilot. But regardless of whether it's done on autopilot or you're sitting down to write an email, something has to go in there. There has to be some kind of content. Now, the reason that people aren't opening your emails or they're not buying from your emails, or maybe they just plain unsubscribe, is simple. You aren't giving them what they want. Now, this could be totally on them. Maybe they no longer need what it is that you sell. For example, we sold baby gear from 0 to 2 years old. So once their baby hit 2 or 3, we didn't have anything for the parents to come in and buy. But that's only a small portion. It is much more likely that what you're delivering to their inbox just isn't what they want to see. Now, if you're struggling with email and it's one of those things that gets pushed further and further down on your to-do list, you're likely missing one or more of the following steps. So this is the same formula that I use to whether it's scaling a business or scaling an email campaign or scaling an ads campaign. And if you've listened to the podcast before, you probably have heard me talk about this. The simple formula to get you unstuck forever, no matter what it is you're stuck in, is goal, focus, specific action, and results. So let's start with the goal. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably rolling your eyes and thinking, oh, everybody talks about setting a goal. And you know what? My goal with email is to make more money. But not every email is going to be about making more money. And if you are not clear on what you want a specific email to achieve, when you sit down to start writing it, then it's likely that your messaging is going to be off, your call to action isn't going to work, your imagery and your offer, they're all going to be out of alignment. And as a result, you get higher unsubscribe rates, you get less opens, you get fewer click-throughs, and of course, you get less sales. So when you open up your email dashboard, quite often you can feel thoroughly disheartened, and this reinforces this idea that you've got that email just doesn't work, when in fact, what really happened was that your email didn't align with your customers' expectations. You didn't give them what they wanted to see. Now, the other important part about starting with setting a goal, and we're going to talk about this more in a moment, is that when you identify the action that you want your customer to take, you can actually set a realistic result that you can measure your campaign effectiveness against. Now, your goal could be to increase brand awareness, or it could be to increase your open rate, or your click-through rate, or your average order value. It's not always going to be about the total number or the total dollar value of sales. And what I mean by this is if you send an email in your welcome sequence that, say, is an email to introduce your customers to your team, which you've done to build this customer loyalty and brand awareness, you can't say that it wasn't effective if it didn't make any sales, because that was never the end goal that you put in place for that email. Does that make sense? So now we can stop blaming email as a platform and start identifying the goal for each email that you write. And the best part is, once you put this in place, it is going to help you streamline that part that you often get hung up on, what it is you want to put inside of your email. You are streaming your entire email system by following this 4-step formula. Okay, so we've had goal. The next is your focus. And your focus refers to the way in which you're going to achieve your goal. And of course, your focus is going to be determined on what that goal looked like, what goal you actually set. Because, hey, if you're going to spend the time and the effort to craft an email campaign, wouldn't you want it to be as impactful as possible? I know I would. I know I do. So your focus is going to be how you're going to achieve your goal. Now, if your focus is on increasing your click-through rate, you might try A/B testing different copy, or maybe A/B testing different images. But if your focus is on increasing your average order value, you might test out 2 different offers to see which one is the most effective. Can you see how this is working out? When you have a focus or that method that you're going to adopt to achieve your overall goal, what it does is it allows you to stand out from your competition because your messaging and your offer are truly aligned with the actions that you want your customer to take, rather than just this hodgepodge, slapped together email blast that is sent to everybody promoting whatever it is that catches your eye on your desk or whatever you're trying to get rid of when you sat down to finally write that email. And when customers open your emails, you'll already have defined exactly what they're supposed to do. They're not going to get confused or overwhelmed. Instead, they're much more likely to take up your call to action, which is going to result in a more effective email campaign all around. And before you even sit down to create your emails, you're going to know exactly what you need to do to get the results that you want. See, when you look at successful 7, 8, and 9-figure indie retailers like Chubbies or Adore Beauty or Showpo, they know how powerful email is as a tool to keep customers engaged, to keep them loyal, as well as bringing in a heck lot of revenue without an awful lot of cost. And what this allows them to do is to continue to use this formula over and over again without procrastinating or just slapping something together last minute just so it can be crossed off a to-do list. What you'll see is they've thought through all of these steps before they even started typing the first word of an email. Every email has an intention, and as a result, it gets more impact. And by doing so, the next step of my simple formula, specific action, that's the part where so many overworked and struggling retailers get stuck. Well, when you follow this formula, your emails are pretty much written for you. So next up is specific action. And that is, how are you going to achieve those results? This is the part where wheels fall off for many retailers. Coming up with ideas, that part is fun. As entrepreneurs and visionaries, we can come up with ideas all day long. And the actual doing of the work, well, that's the part where somehow, despite the fact that we're action takers, it all tends to fall in a heap. And what you might find when you get stuck at this step is that there is always busy work that becomes way more important. And on the surface, you can totally justify that it's part of your overall marketing campaign. And by this, I mean, maybe you really enjoy faffing about in Canva and creating images. So you end up spending 2 hours making images for an email campaign without the goal and the focus. There's more to an email campaign than just images. And I don't want you to get stuck in that busy work. What you need to focus on is your segmenting, your personalization, none of the stuff that ever gets done because you've fallen back into that trap of doing what's fun and easy for you rather than what's going to increase your sales or to help you meet that overall goal. So specific action is stepping out the exact steps that need to be done to get your results. And again, once you have this, once you put this process in place, you don't have to rewrite it every time you create an email. It's going to be the same steps over and over again. What this does, it means that you don't feel like you've got more and more on your plate when you sit down to write an email. It doesn't feel like just another thing on your to-do list. So specific action is where you step out the different parts that need to be done. The images that you need, the animated GIFs, the copy, the offer, each part of the email process. And you know what? Maybe you don't do them all. Maybe you offload the graphics to somebody else or the copy to somebody else. Maybe you offload the whole process to somebody else. When we build our email campaigns for our clients, this is the number one thing that they tell us they get stuck on. This part of the formula, the specific action. This is where most retail and e-commerce store owners stall. They don't know what to write. They don't know what to offer. They don't know what they should put out. They don't know how to segment their list, and they don't know how to make sure that the right offer gets to the right person at the right time. So if you have any of these problems that I've just mentioned, and you know that you should be sending out more emails, but it just feels like more work, following this simple formula is going to help you blitz through that roadblock, I promise. Inside of our business, we create a lot of emails, but by following this format, creating emails that convert is faster, it's easier, and they convert much higher. Now, the last one, and it might even be the most important, because even if you have the goal and the focus and the specific action, the last part of the simple formula is results, and it's going to set you up for success in the future. Now, when it comes to results, can you see that if your goal was to, let's say it was to make more money, and your focus to do that was by increasing your average order value, and to do that, you were going to test out 2 different offers. That email that you craft and you measure your results against is going to be very, very different from an email campaign where your goal was just to increase your open rate and your focus was on copywriting. Those are very different email campaigns, and you're testing and measuring very different things. So if you don't have that goal, you don't know what to measure. Now, honestly, I'm sure that I don't have to tell you that there's no point in even running a marketing campaign if you're not going to measure its effectiveness. I mean, if you don't, how do you know what works and what doesn't? And how do you know what to do more of or what to scrap entirely? If you are blindly sending out emails without checking in to see which customers are engaged with which content and you have no benchmark, it's like running a race where there is no finish line. You just keep running and running and running, and you end up tired and even more exhausted. And as a result, you just end up in this vicious cycle, knowing that you should send out more emails, but dreading the thought and wondering when you're going to have the time to put it all together. So when you follow this formula, goal, focus, specific action, results, what you really have is a process. A process that's going to allow you to craft high converting emails that are delivered to the right person at the right time of their buying journey, and it's going to build loyal and engaged and a profitable customer base for a fraction of the time and the cost that you're currently spending. So if you want to be able to craft those kinds of email campaigns, don't worry. I've got a free download for you where I break down the entire process so that you can scale your store and increase your ROI further, faster, and with less effort. You can grab it over in the show notes over at selenaknight.com/formula. Okay, that's it from me for today's episode. I hope that this will help you get unstuck forever when it comes to email marketing. I'll see you same time, same place, right here next week. Have a fantastic week. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.